It swallowed the earth, the trees, the rivers, everything, except the shape of one man standing alone. He was their chief. Once, his voice could stir warriors to stand against armies. Once his hands had lifted children into the air as the people cheered. Once, his name was spoken with pride. Now he was nothing but a shadow in the storm. The tribe had left him. They walked away in silence, their snowshoes cutting trails into the frozen ground. No one looked back, not his family, not the hunters who once swore loyalty, not even the medicine man who had once called him brother. Why would a people abandon their leader in the very heart of winter? What crime could break the sacred bond between chief and tribe? The fire of his breath steamed in the night air. He pressed his hand to his chest, feeling the weight of years, battles, and secrets. Somewhere inside, he wondered, was this punishment from the spirits? Or was it simply the cruel way of survival? For the people of the North, life was a game of endurance. The winter showed no mercy. If food ran out, if mistakes were made, if leadership failed, the cost was blood. The old ones used to say, the snow is a judge, the wind is a witness, the tribe is the jury. Tonight, the jury had delivered its verdict. But this story is not just about a chief abandoned in the snow. It is about the law of survival. It is about trust, betrayal, and the thin line between loyalty and fear. It is about how one man's fall can echo through generations, carried like smoke into the stories told around campfires. So lean closer, traveler. Let the crackle of fire guide your ears. Let the drum of your heart match the beat of this tale. And ask yourself, if you lived in that time, with the cold gnawing at your bones, would you have left your chief behind? The snow still remembers, the spirits still whisper, and the truth waits in the silence of winter. The land of the people stretched far across the frozen plains, where herds of buffalo once thundered like black clouds across the earth. But when the cold moons arrived, the buffalo vanished south, leaving only bones and tracks behind. In this season, survival depended not on hunting alone, but on wisdom. A tribe that wasted meat would starve. A chief who chose the wrong path would doom them all. Their homes were tippa-strong, swift to build, easy to carry. Animal hides stretched tight against tall poles, keeping out the wind like the skin of a living giant. Inside, fire burned low, its smoke slipping through the hole at the top, reminding them of prayers rising to the Great Spirit. But even the best home could not keep away the hunger. The snow covered the plants. The rivers froze thick as stone. To live, they had to follow the deer, the elk, the scattered buffalo that lingered in the north. This was where the chief's burden grew heavy. His people had trusted him for years, but lately, whispers stirred like restless spirits. The hunts were fewer, the food stores thinner. The chief, whose name meant thunderwalks at dawn, was once a warrior whose presence brought courage. But courage alone could not fill a belly. The hunters murmured, perhaps he has lost the favor of the spirits. Perhaps his visions no longer guide him. Still, he held to tradition. Each evening, he gathered his council around the fire. They spoke of signs in the sky, the tracks in the snow, the voices of the medicine men. And always, he spoke with steady strength, refusing to show fear. But deep in his heart, he felt the weight of something darker. For 3 nights in a row, his dreams were filled with ravens circling above him, their wings black against the pale sun. In those dreams, the snow swallowed the people, and only his figure remained, alone. He did not tell anyone of these visions. To reveal them might invite panic. To hide them was to walk with danger. That was the first crack in the bond between chief and tribe. When the storm came, sharp as blades of ice, they followed him into the woods to find deer. For 2 days, they searched. On the 3rd, with bellies aching and frost clinging to their lashes, the hunters found nothing. They turned to him, eyes filled with questions sharper than any arrow. And he realized the storm was not just in the sky. It was building inside his own people. The storm howled like a living beast. Snow struck their faces, as if the sky itself had turned against them. The tribe moved in single file, their snowshoes spreading their weight across the crust of ice. Without them, each step would sink to the knees, draining precious strength. These snowshoes were crafted from bent wood and rawhide laces, a skill passed down through generations. Without them, no one could chase the elk or escape a wolf pack. But even with skill, the land showed no mercy. The wind tore through their buffalo hides, gnawed at their fingers, and froze their eyelashes to white. The chief walked at the front, breaking the trail. Every step he took made it easier for those behind. It was the duty of a leader to carve a path through the wilderness. Yet every time he lifted his snowshoe, he felt the weight of doubt pressing harder than the snow. By the second night, their food bags were empty. Children whimpered inside the tippis. Mothers chewed scraps of leather to keep hunger from twisting their stomachs. The hunters boiled bones and weak broth, hoping to draw out the last taste of fat. Survival demanded more than courage, it demanded invention. Some scraped bark from willow trees, peeling it thin like paper, boiling it until it softened. Others dug through the snow to find hidden roots, bitter but edible. The old women remembered which plants held life, which held poison. Still, the people grew weaker. Every mistake could mean death. A single burned hide meant no blanket. A lost arrowhead meant no hunt. The animals knew it too. Wolves followed their scent, their eyes glowing from the tree line at night. Ravens circled overhead, waiting for weakness. Even the deer seemed sharper, fleeing before a bowstring could be drawn. It was during this hunger that the whispers spread louder. Why do we follow a chief who leads us into storms? Why do the spirits not bless our hunts? Perhaps the time has come for new leadership. But replacing a chief was no simple matter. It was not just about strength. It was about spirit. The Great Spirit gave authority to some and stripped it from others. To challenge a chief meant risking the anger of the ancestors. Still, hunger has a voice louder than tradition. One night, as the fire burned low, a hunter spoke openly. Thunder walks at dawn, no longer walks with the spirits. If he cannot feed us, what good is his strength? The people looked to the chief for his answer. He stared into the fire, silent, and in that silence, their doubt grew deeper. The storm outside roared. The storm inside the tribe grew louder still. Inside the tippis, life carried on like a fragile flame. The walls of hide swayed with the wind, but within, the people clung to their ways. Women softened hides with bone tools, stretching and scraping until the leather was supple. Children learned to braid rope from sinew. Even in hunger, traditions continued, for tradition was survival, as vital as meat. At the heart of every tipi burned a fire. The smoke rose through the flap at the top, carrying prayers into the sky. Each family offered thanks before eating, even if it was only a scrap of dried root or a thin soup. Gratitude was their shield against despair. The chief's family lived no differently. His wife, known as Willow Eyes, kept her dignity even as she divided food into smaller and smaller portions for their children. She never spoke against her husband in public, but in private, her eyes carried storms. She wanted to believe in him, but the cries of hungry children cut deeper than loyalty. The council of elders, once united, began to fracture. Some argued that the chief still carried the wisdom of the ancestors. Others whispered that the spirits had turned their faces from him. It was in these quiet nights that bonds were tested. The young men sharpened their arrows, but not always for the hunt. Rivalries grew sharp in hunger. Pride and anger festered like wounds beneath the skin. A warrior who once swore to defend his chief now questioned if loyalty was worth the taste of starvation. Yet, amid doubt, there were still sparks of beauty. At night, the old storytellers spoke, their voices weaving through the cold. They told the children of the Great Spirit who set the stars in the sky, of animals who once spoke with humans. of ancestors who endured winters far harsher than this one. "Remember," one elder said, his voice trembling like dry wood, "the tribe is more than hunger. We are more than the storm. As long as we keep the stories alive, the people will endure." But not all stories brought comfort. Some whispered of old punishments, the ancient law that if a chief failed, he could be cast out, left to walk alone in the snow. Few spoke of it openly, but the memory lingered, like a shadow at the edge of the fire. The chief himself listened to the stories, his face calm, but inside, he remembered his dream, the ravens circling, the snow swallowing all. He wondered if the storytellers were not only speaking to the children, but warning him as well. Outside, the wolves howled. Inside, the tribe held close to fire and tradition. Yet, beneath every prayer, every song, every whispered tale, there was one question none dared speak aloud. The land was never silent. Even in winter, it spoke. You just had to know how to listen. The hunters read the snow the way others read books. Tracks told stories, a hare fleeing, a fox stalking, a moose wandering heavy with hunger. Broken branches, disturbed frost. The faint smell of musk, these were messages written by the wilderness. But lately, the messages were grim. The deer had vanished, as if swallowed by the forest. The wolves came closer, not merely to stalk, but to test. They prowled the edges of the camp, their howls weaving with the wind like war drums. To the people, wolves were both kin and enemy. They were hunters too, fierce and clever. To see them bold enough to circle the tipis meant only one thing: weakness. Then came the ravens, black-winged, sharp-eyed. They gathered in the trees above the camp. They watched with cold patience, their cries harsh against the frozen sky. In many stories, the raven was a trickster, a messenger of change. To see them in such numbers, perched silent in the branches, was a sign that something sacred was unraveling. The medicine man, Broken Antler, studied the sky at dusk. He carried a pouch of herbs, sprinkling cedar into the fire, the smoke rising sharp and bitter. He warned the people, "The spirits test us. They send signs through the animals. If we do not listen, the earth will take from us what it wills." Some nodded. Others muttered that his words sounded too much like the chief's. Too many warnings, too few answers. That night, a strange thing happened. A fox walked straight into the circle of campfires. Its fur was pale, almost white, blending with the snow. It did not run. It stared at the chief with unblinking eyes before vanishing into the dark. The elders whispered of the old prophecy. When the white fox appeared, it meant a leader's path had reached its end. Thunderwalks at dawn said nothing, but his chest tightened. The fox's gaze had pierced him, as though it knew his fate. He remembered another dream from his youth, when the Great Spirit had shown him two paths, one lined with fire, the other with endless snow. Until now, he believed he had chosen fire, the path of strength. But perhaps the snow had always been waiting. The next morning, more whispers stirred. Children asked why the ravens screamed. Mothers asked why wolves lingered so close. Hunters asked why the fox had looked into the chief's eyes. It seemed the whole world was speaking, and the people were beginning to hear only one message. The spirits have turned away from thunderwalks at dawn. The snow fell heavier. The wind grew louder, and the tribe began to wonder it was nature calling for their chief's life. The storm did not ease. It seemed to grow heavier with each passing night, as though the sky itself wished to bury the people. Inside the camp, hunger turned into anger. Whispers became open words, and words, once sharp, now cut deep enough to draw blood. It began with the hunters. They returned from yet another empty journey, their quivers full of arrows, but their hands empty of meat. Their leader, a young warrior named Red Hawk, threw his bow onto the ground. His voice carried through the camp. "Thunder walks at dawn, leads us into emptiness." How many days must our children starve before we open our eyes? The people gathered, their faces hollow, their bodies shivering under thin hides. Some lowered their heads in shame, others in agreement. The chief stood tall, his breath like smoke rising into the frozen air. "I have led you through storms before," he said. "I have fought enemies at your side. I have carried the weight of this tribe for many winters. Do you forget so quickly?" But Red Hawk stepped forward, eyes burning. "Strength in war does not fill our bellies. The spirits show us signs, ravens, wolves, the white fox. They are not with you anymore. You hold us on a path to death." The words struck like arrows. Some nodded, others hesitated. Loyalty to tradition fought against the voice of survival. Then, as if to test them, fate delivered another blow. A scouting party returned with news. A rival band of hunters, from a neighboring tribe, had been seen not far to the west. They too searched for game, and their tracks crossed dangerously close to the people's hunting grounds. To hunt there meant risk. To avoid it meant hunger. The council gathered in silence. Thunder walks at dawn urged caution. We must not provoke war. The spirits punish those who shed blood without cause. We will find food elsewhere. But Red Hawk slammed his hand on the ground. Elsewhere, every step leads us deeper into snow and death. If we do not claim those hunting grounds, we are already finished. The tribe looked between them, between the old chief and the fiery young warrior. One promised patience, the other promised action. One offered tradition, the other survival. That night, the campfire burned low. Families whispered in their tipis, asking each other the question no one wanted to say aloud. What if the tribe no longer needed thunder walks at dawn? The wolves howled from the edge of the camp, as though echoing their doubts. The ravens screamed from the trees. The spirits seemed to watch with cold eyes, waiting for the tribe's choice. And in that waiting, the bond between chief and people frayed like an old rope in the wind. The night stretched long, the stars hidden behind thick clouds. In the chief's tipi, the fire had burned down 2 coals, glowing like dying hearts. Thunder walks at dawn sat alone, his people's whispers echoing louder in his mind than the storm outside. Sleep did not come easily, but when it finally did, it brought him a vision. He stood on an endless plain of snow. The sky above was torn open with fire, red and gold, like the sun bleeding into night. Around him circled the animals, the wolf, the raven, the fox. Their eyes glowed, unblinking. The fox spoke first, its voice sharp as breaking ice. "Your people doubt you. Their hunger speaks louder than your words." The wolf padded closer, teeth bared. A leader who cannot feed his pack is no leader at all. And the raven landed on his shoulder, whispering in a voice like cracking bones. "Your fate is to walk alone." Thunder walks at dawn dropped to his knees, his breath clouding the air. He called out to the Great Spirit, "If I have failed, then take me. But if my people must live, show me the path." In the vision, the sky split open. A herd of bison thundered across the plain, dark shapes against the firelit snow. Hope surged in his chest. But then, just as quickly, the bison dissolved into smoke, leaving nothing but silence. He awoke with a gasp, the tipi filled with the smell of cold ash. Sweat froze against his skin. By dawn, he made a choice. He would lead one last hunt, to prove to the spirits and to his people that his strength had not abandoned him. He gathered the hunters. Red Hawk glared, but did not refuse. They set out into the wilderness, snowshoes crunching, bows ready. Hours turned to a day. The wind bit harder. Then, at the edge of the frozen river, they saw it. A single elk, proud and tall, pawing at the snow to reach the grass beneath. The hunters readied their bows. But Thunder walks at dawn raised his hand. "Not yet. We move with patience. The spirits test us still." They crept closer, silent as shadows. But before the arrow could fly, The elk lifted its head, eyes wide. With a sudden bound, it fled into the forest. The hunters cursed, anger spilling like fire. Red Hawk spat into the snow. Your patience feeds nothing. We follow a man who chases ghosts. The men turned their eyes on the chief not with trust, but with blame. It was then that Thunderwalks at Dawn knew the truth. The trial was not for the elk, not for the tribe. It was for him, and the spirits had given their answer. The hunters returned to camp with empty hands once more. Their faces were drawn, their breaths ragged, their eyes hard with silent blame. Children cried louder that night. Mothers pressed them close, trying to soothe hunger with songs, but even songs felt brittle. The old ones stared into the fire, as though seeing the end written in the flames, and in the shadows. The whispers sharpened into open talk. Red Hawk would not have failed. The spirits showed us signs. We ignored them. Our chief no longer carries the favor of the Great Spirit. Every word spread, like sparks in dry grass. At the council fire, Red Hawk rose to his feet. His voice carried the weight of anger, but also the power of truth to ears desperate for hope. How many hunts must end in emptiness? He demanded. How many children must starve before we see clearly? Thunderwalks at Dawn has lost the path. The spirits no longer walk with him. If we do not act, winter will bury us all. Some elders resisted. He is our chief. To cast him aside is to invite dishonor. But Red Hawk's eyes burned like coals. Dishonor is watching our people die while we cling to a broken reed. The tribe fell into silence. All eyes turned to Thunderwalks at Dawn. He sat tall, but the firelight carved deep shadows into his face, making him look older than ever. He did not defend himself. He did not beg. He only said, I have given my life to this tribe. If the people believe I no longer serve them, then I will walk the path the spirits set for me. A hush fell. Some looked away, ashamed. Others straightened, relieved that the choice had been spoken aloud by the old law. A failed chief could be abandoned, left in the snow, to walk his last journey alone. It was not cruelty, it was survival. The tribe must live, even if one man must die. That night, the fire burned low. The people did not sing. They did not drum. They only sat in silence, each heart heavy with the knowledge of what tomorrow would bring. The chief's family wept quietly. Willow Eyes tried to speak, but he laid a hand on hers. Do not mourn, he whispered. Every leader must face the spirits alone one day. My time has come. The wind howled through the trees, rattling the hides of the tipis. Wolves gathered closer, their cries piercing the night. The ravens returned, black shapes against the moonlight. Even the earth seemed to prepare for what must happen. When dawn came, the tribe would make their choice, and the snow would claim its judge. Dawn broke gray and merciless. The storm had stilled, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than thunder. Snow stretched in all directions, a vast white plain with no mercy, no shelter, no promise of food. The people gathered outside their tipis, their faces pale from hunger and shame. No one spoke at first. They only watched as Thunderwalks at Dawn stepped into the open, his breath rising like smoke into the frozen sky. The council stood before him. Red Hawk's eyes glowed with fire, but his hands trembled whether from cold or guilt. None could tell by the law of their ancestors. The choice had been made. The tribe would live by leaving their chief behind. The old medicine man, Broken Antler, raised his staff. His voice was thin but steady. Thunderwalks at Dawn, the people no longer follow your path. The spirits have turned their faces. By the law of our fathers, you will walk into the snow. For a moment, the camp was silent, except for the groan of the wind through the trees. The chief's wife, Willow Eyes, broke the silence with a cry. She clung to him, her tears freezing on her cheeks. Their children wrapped their arms around his legs, refusing to let go. He bent low, holding them close, his great hands shaking, as he kissed their heads. "Do not fear," he whispered. "The spirits walk with me, and one day my story will walk with you." The warriors pried his family's arms away, their eyes filled with sorrow. None of them wanted to be the hand of betrayal, but hunger had made its law. The chief straightened, his breath slow and steady. He took up his staff and a small pouch of dried herbs, the only gifts the medicine man dared to give him. No bow, no arrows, no food, just the sky, the earth, and the spirits. He began to walk. The tribe watched in silence as his figure grew smaller against the endless white. Each step crunched, echoing louder in their hearts than in the snow itself. Children sobbed, elders bowed their heads. Even Red Hawk turned away, unable to watch the man vanish into exile. But the animals did not turn away. The ravens rose from the trees, black wings cutting across the pale sky. They followed him, circling above, like shadows of fate. The wolves padded silently through the snow, keeping their distance, as though escorting him toward his end. The chief did not stumble. He walked with steady steps, head high, as though he were leading his people still, though they were no longer behind him. Hours passed. The tribe returned to their tipis, their silence heavier than hunger. Yet some could not shake the image of his tall figure against the horizon. Swallowed slowly by white, and then came the final sign. A storm rose, sudden and fierce, snow whipping into the sky until the land itself disappeared. In the chaos, a child cried out, pointing. For just a moment, through the curtain of ice, they swore they saw the figure of Thunderwalks at dawn raise his staff high. Lightning cracked across the clouds, bright and violent, as if the Great Spirit himself answered. When the storm cleared, the chief was gone. Only the endless plain remained. No tracks, no body, no proof. Some said the snow took him. Others said the spirits lifted him beyond the veil. But every man, woman, and child who stood there knew one thing. Thunderwalks at dawn had not simply died. He had become part of the storm itself, and from that day on, whenever the wind howled across the frozen plains, the people swore they could hear his voice in it, warning, guiding, judging. The chief who was abandoned had never truly left. Long after that winter passed, the story of Thunderwalks at dawn lived on. Some told it as a warning, that even the strongest leader could fall when the spirits turned away. Others told it as a lesson in survival, that a tribe must choose the living over the one, even if the one is a chief. But there were those who told it differently. They said he never truly died in the snow. They said the storm took him into its heart, shaping him into a guardian spirit. When the wind howled through the trees, it was his voice reminding them to stay strong. When lightning split the sky, it was his staff striking against the clouds. Generations later, the people still remembered. Around winter fires, elders whispered, "Do not forget. Leadership is not only about strength in battle. It is about feeding your people, guiding them through hunger, carrying their doubts as if they were your own." The tale of his exile became more than history. It became a mirror. Every chief, every leader, every parent or guide was measured against his shadow. Would they feed their people or lead them into storms? Would they walk with the spirits or be left to walk alone? And what about us? Today, we may not live in tipis beneath a frozen sky, but we know the cold in other ways. We face hunger of the heart, storms of the mind, winters of despair. We, too, look for leaders who can guide us through darkness. We too must ask hard questions. Who do we follow? What do we sacrifice? And when the time comes, do we abandon or do we stand together? The snow remembers, the spirits whisper, and the story of a chief abandoned in the snow lives on, not as a tale of death, but as a reminder. Leadership is a fire. Feed it, or watch it fade. If you had been there hungry, cold, watching your children cry, would you have left your chief behind in the snow? Or would you have stood by him, even if it meant risking the tribe's survival. These are not easy choices, and that is why the story of Thunder Walks at Dawn still burns like a fire across generations. It forces us to ask, what is loyalty worth? What is leadership worth? And when survival is at stake, where do we draw the line? Tell me in the comments, would you have followed the law of the ancestors or defied it? If stories like this speak to your spirit, remember to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe for more forgotten legends and Native American wisdom told by FIRELIGHT. The snow remembers, do you?